And welcome back. Let me just make sure that the sound is relatively good. A little quiet. It's conclusion time, and I'm not happy. And if you want proof, I'm gonna have to ask you to sit the fuck down and stop asking questions, because I have no idea. But I constantly get stuck on things, and probably I'll go on a tirade now and just end up completely changing my mind. However, let's look at the evidence, which is constantly combating every idea that I have. So down there is the ice maker machine. The mold wasn't there. It's in the cold. Fine. I would imagine the champagne was down there, and the dead guy brought it. I don't know. I think it might have been like an attempt to divert and confuse, to break the negative down there as well about the ice cream. Because I was thinking, if someone is trying to frame the ice weapon and then just use the silver weapon instead, then things just don't really work out. And there's also one thing that makes me think that this murder was sort of like, it makes me think that this murder was sort of, it wasn't really thought out that well. Or maybe it wasn't even the intention, but then that theory or hypothesis breaks down as well, because I think, and I can't remember, there's so much to remember, but I feel like if it was the silver knife, then it was the crazy person. If it was the ice knife, then it was the archaeologist guy. And if it was the third guy who owns these baths, that's hard to say, then I don't know what I'm doing with anything in my life. But I don't think that they did it, because the knife wasn't here. So the motive for, I'll get rid of him first, because the motive would be that the knife wasn't here, it was actually in another place. So that would mean that this place, I wouldn't discard it. It is very nice, but then probably there wouldn't be that much reason to restore it or something, or then the other place gets restored. And then he wants that knife to never be found. So what does he do? Well, he doesn't kill him with the silver knife, because the silver was put into the fire by the crazy guy. So that's not going to work. So he has to use the ice knife. So what he does is, let's walk through it. He oh shit, I actually realized I don't know where he was during this whole thing. No, he was in the baths. So let's talk about coincidences a little bit, because I need to make my decision in the next, let's say, 40 minutes, and I'll try not to make it that long without any content. Coincidence is champagne. I think it just was there, and it was brought in by the guy who knew that he was going to celebrate, basically, because he thought that he had found the knife, or that he had actually found it, but elsewhere. So he was looking for a party. So that's a coincidence. Second coincidence is the bellboy. He leaves randomly. Thus, it means that whoever took the key was around here during that time when he left. And now I'm thinking, you can hear the doors everywhere, I would imagine. Let me turn because all the doors are loud. Okay, so this is a new angle that I didn't have time to think about. Let me put the volume up there. So he hears someone leave. I would imagine. And then he goes and gets the key. So that's where I feel that this whole thing, because it's a big part of the murder that the door was locked in here. Because if it isn't locked, people can, if someone notices something, and people are free to leave, and it doesn't leave much time, especially for the ice knife to melt completely and so on. So this guy leaves, and then someone who's over there or around here, but they're in there most definitely, comes in and takes the knife. And it's pure luck. So it's a coincidence that they got the key. Did I say knife? I meant the key. So that has to be I need to make some conclusions. So that is a coincidence as well. So the champagne was brought in by the guy who celebrates, who is the dead guy, and then this guy leaves by random, thus leaving the key vulnerable here. Someone took it because he came back, and then the key was gone, and he knew it or noticed it and couldn't open the door later on when he needed it. So what does that leave us with? Then it sort of creates a situation where the murder happened. The murder happened in a way where things sort of changed in a sense. And I would imagine, because I'm not quick on my feet anymore, with my thinking and with my talking, it seems, as well. So they took the negative from here, and I would imagine that they start, because they have, because someone's here anyway, from 7:20 to 7:40. And they hear him, probably leaving. They're either waiting for something or something like that. Now, we don't know where the ice cream machine was before. This is where the plate was from downstairs, right, from the secret little thingy. So, also the dead guy had been lowered into, so he had either lowered himself down into the pit, or then someone else lowered him there, so someone was with him when he made the discovery, maybe, who knows, but he was being very secretive, so I would imagine that he'd done it himself. So he was sort of working around there. Now, at this point, when you're already doing shit, you're already down here for something, so you have to be down here for probably the murder. There's another chance that maybe everything took so long, and then on this morning someone happened to be here doing stuff, but I don't think so. So that would lead me to think that the murder was premeditated, but then and they had maybe a plan, but then they took the opportunities that arose with the champagne, which is one thing, because he came in, he made sure everything's perfect, he cleared the room, and he didn't see anybody bring in the champagne. So that would mean that someone put the champagne there after he had someone put the champagne there after he had tidied places up and stuff, because he didn't have a reason to go back here anymore and put or see the champagne, but he knows that it wasn't there. He didn't see it when he was making everything perfect, so I think he wouldn't miss a bottle of champagne there. So he came in 6:30, makes everything perfect, leaves at 7:20. Someone is over there, they come in, take the key, they bring in the champagne, and here's another problem. why would they have champagne on them if, because they didn't know he was going to leave, so they would have brought the champagne in. So it's another coincidence. So it doesn't give us anything really, but it shows us that the champagne was brought here when he was gone. So there's another option that, someone brings in the champagne through this and everybody sees them bring it in, and then they just make excuses, but now they could bring in the champagne without having any issues. And because the champagne had ice in it, and it was so early in the morning, I would say that the champagne was already being kept down there in the frigidarium, because it's cold down there and you can store ice down there. And especially if you have the ice down there and then you chip it off from the ice cream maker and then bring it in. However, it could be another coincidence that the boss man came. Well, if the boss would have come back here, if the owner of the baths would have come here and seen him gone, and wasn't the killer, he would have made a big deal out of it. So this doesn't really give me anything, and I won't say us, because maybe somebody knows what's going on and they understand it, but I sure as hell am. I'm just putting that in the coincidence category, because there's no way of knowing that he would be gone. So anyone bringing in the champagne had to sort of think fast, in a sense. Now, 20 minutes, can they run out? Let's look at the map. So they are in the center, so they could know or find some place here where they could find a bottle of champagne, think quick on their feet. And I can't rule that out. Just because I'm dumb doesn't mean that, other people are. So, but again, all this is not really leading us anywhere. So then in here, we know the body was here. The blood might have been caused by humidity, but it was, likely caused by ice. Now, there's ice right there. And if you want to confuse the shit out of me, you take ice and just put it down there. Another thing that I was thinking about is the room is hot. And the crazy guy said that the room was so hot. So he goes and stands next to the fire. That seems stupid. However, he was here to put the silver in. Now, also, because it was hot, and probably he didn't carry his coins around with him in his butthole or prison wallet, he went out because it was hot anyway. He came here, took his whatever it was, the knife or whatever shape the silver was beforehand, and then these doors were open, so he would have noticed that the little bellboy there isn't here. So that leads me to think that his clothes were here, and because I went through that before and I forgot, because there's so many different angles here. But the bellboy was there because the bellboy was gone before. So let's backtrack. He comes out, it's hot, but he didn't hear anybody come out. And the doors make a lot of noise, not when they open, but when they close. So nobody came out of here after 9 o'clock, when everybody marched in here. So that actually leads me to think that the silver was either the silver was not in coin shape. The game is sort of trying to hint that the silver is modern. However, there are sort of whatchamacallit, they're like ingots. I think they might actually be called ingots as well, though they're not the gold bar kind of ingots, but they have like stamps on them and stuff, so you could probably put one of those behind your butt cheeks. whatever. But it's sort of hard to carry that kind of stuff in. A knife, however, you can have a rope underneath your robes. That's why we go to our steam rooms naked, because you can't hide a knife in your butthole. So he hid the knife possibly inside his, and I'm just rolling with it, in his not in his butthole, but in his towel, underneath his towel. And then he was hanging around and no one left, so he was hot. He goes over here, and then because he's got the key now, he decides that he's not only going to do some sort of sacrificial thing with his knife, and I mean, he made it into a knife. He could have just had silver or coins or whatever, but let's say that he turned it into a knife just to make the, I don't know how that works, but you know, make the sacrifice more, make it better, make it more appropriate. So then he has the key now, and it's totally random that he had it. So he turns and locks the door. He bolts, because he said that whatever ran through the room shined of gold. He had the key, so he was trying to frame someone else. So he stabs him in the eye. No one sees it or hears it. He drops the key right behind it because he has to get rid of the key. He can't hold on to the key. And then he goes over here and he's like, oh fuck, things are really taking a turn. And then he takes his glasses off. He's nervous. And he throws the silver in there and he's like, all right, I've finished this, and now I feel good. So this means that he would have had to go over, and he would have seen the golden knife and dropped the lamp next to the golden knife, and he was there alone, because if he was there with an archaeologist or something like that, if there were more than one person there, then they would have taken the knife. But since the murderer was alone, he couldn't open the doors in the secret thingy. So now I'm just really telling myself that this is how it went, and I feel like I just can't, but I'm doing my best. So that's how I think it went. So let's recap. It's 9 o'clock in the morning. He's there. Everybody comes in. The champagne is... Why is the champagne here? Nobody saw the champagne. Someone just brought it in. Maybe people just missed it. I don't know. But it was here already. So that would mean that the frame with the ice thing was happening before this whole thing. So he didn't probably even need a knife. He just needed a little bit of ice. But 20 minutes, yeah, that's enough. 20 minutes of hanging around here, you lock the door, fine. So I'm just working my way back. This probably doesn't make any sense, and my brain is shutting off all the things that are sort of not corresponding to my theory. And then there was already a frame in place with the ice. Maybe it was like a backup plan or something. But when he got the key, I guess things changed or something. And after 7:40 until 9 a.m., you still have a lot of time. The crazy guy came in last. However, that means nothing. He's a little crazy, and he's always following the guys around, I guess. He said he follows researches or then researchers. I'm not sure which one it is, if it's a mistake in the dialogue. So he knows about the sort of the ice thingy. He's seen it in a book. He's seen it in a box, in a picture. Maybe they've talked about it. They were the archaeologists. Both archaeologists were in Egypt together, and so on. So he followed this guy around when he was making his discoveries down there, and then he sort of hatched up his plan and the motive, of course, which is really important. I was thinking at some point that he would take too much of the drug intentionally and make himself seem like he's crazy, but then there's no motive. Because he actually is superstitious, I would imagine. But he's sort of playing into it in a sense. And I guess he's making himself, or I think he's like really anxious. So I think he's taking too much because he's anxious. Now this is, complete guess, but I think I guess that's how it is. And so now we've sort of covered the whole murder. We've ignored a lot of shit, and we're going to keep ignoring it because now it's time for the conclusion. And what button is it? It's this one. So the method is the silver. The presence of water is due to the humid atmosphere caused by this. Oh yeah, so the last thing I wanted to do was, because last time, in the last case, I decided the case on solely on these, because these I would imagine are true or false. So it's not like it says that it's not like the game says that it was the ice knife and then gives you a false premise of how it was used. I imagine them to be accurate. So let's go through these because that would already change my mind. Pitkin feels rather uncomfortable postponing the public opening of the Roman baths because of Sir Rodney. He was angry because of this. Pitkin expects to receive much of value from Sir Rodney's research. The work will increase the bath's renown and popularity. So this is, he was angry too, but this one is more true. Because he wasn't angry at... He was the opposite of angry, I think, towards the archaeologist here. Because it's not being postponed by him, it's being postponed by the other dude. So this is definitely this one. And so Rodney's secret was an important discovery. That is true, and there's no other things here. So Blinkhorn's work was saved by the arrival of Sir Rodney, but at a high cost to his morale. Now, Blinkhorn's work was saved by the arrival of Sir Rodney. He was thankful for the possibility of their working together and the chance of learning from him. Now, he would say that, and I guess that's true, but I guess this is also true. So with this one, I'm not really sure, so I'm just gonna click this for now, make things turn red, just to remember. Now, Garo is tortured by his obsession with the Mithras curse. He has been driven insane, a condition worsened by the medication he is taking. Garo is melancholic. He is a victim of over-medication, hence the hallucinations and unpredictable behavior. His state has been worsened by the shock of Sir Rodney's death. Now, I think this is actually true, because he said that now it's after him and it didn't work and things like that. But he could just say these things. But I also think that he is tortured by the Mithras curse. So again, he's not a victim of over-medication. He is actually obsessed. It's not the medication that's doing it. I'm sure he knows more about things, or actually maybe not. He's always been a little weird, melancholic, that's fine, but then at what point did he start taking the medication, and did he start then seeing things? So I'll just click that for now. Now, I don't see the ice knife working in any way, in a sense, because no one saw the champagne come in, which means that the champagne might have been brought in when... like before this whole thing was over, or before this whole thing had started. So the silver weapon was used and then destroyed in the brazier of the crime, and then the ice weapon was initially created and then preserved inside the champagne bucket. Now I think this is sort of fantastical in a sense. Ice melts, and it doesn't really melt unpredictably in a sense, but running around stabbing someone with a wet, icy knife is not something that I'm gonna go with. So this is what I was thinking before as well. There's a silver weapon and there's an ice weapon, so you have to choose either one. And if it was the silver weapon, it was automatically Garo. And I think just like through all this shit, I mean, it could be linked to not to the murder process. It must be somehow linked to the murder process. It doesn't have to be linked to the murder process. So Blinkhorn with a silver knife doesn't really make much sense, unless he would have talked with Garrow and then known things that sort of were not given. So I mean, this, out of all of these things, this is what makes sense, and this is what we're going to do. It was Garrow with a silver knife, and I feel I've gone back and forth with, like, well, it's too obvious because everyone blamed the weird guy, but then, you know, if the evidence sort of supports it, but I have a lot of circumstantial hypotheses, evidence, which I would never count. I have no single line from, you know, point A to point B, or well, point A to point Z, where at least, you know, most of the things make sense with the evidence, I mean. So basically I'm just completely throwing shit around. But this is what we're going to do. So send him to the asylum. He's a psychopath. We are unable to determine if his actions were deliberately manipulative or due to genuine illness. He needs to be put away for life. Send him to the sanatorium for appropriate treatment. He cannot be held responsible for his crime as he was under the strong psychotropic effect of St. John's wort. He may yet be cured. So I don't think he did it. Really, I mean, I'm going to accuse him, but it's because I have to accuse someone. And look at his little face. I wouldn't want to put that guy in, well, it's definitely not in jail. But then I looked this up, and it doesn't really create hallucinations, because I think it's only fair. I didn't look up St. John's wort in relation to the game. I looked it up because if I was Sherlock Holmes, I'd like to know more about it. And it sort of creates nausea and stuff. So I think he should be sent, because I don't know if he's a psychopath, because he's just he's crazy. So we're going to go with this. And it's sort of not... I mean, I feel like I'm wrong in every possible way, but still I'm doing this. So here we go.
Mr. Garrow, allow me to introduce you to Dr. Watson.
Mr. Garrow, please do not be alarmed. We only wish to help you. You were under an intolerable stress, but it's over now.
What?
I can attest that your medication affected your judgment. You will not recall, but it caused you to temporarily lose control.
Did I? Are you saying I killed Sir Rodney?
I am afraid so. For as my doctor will persist in reminding me every single day, drugs can be harmful. You developed a malevolent obsession with Sir Rodney. You believed him to be unworthy, sacrilegious.
Oh,
Do not distress yourself. Prison is clearly not a suitable environment for you.
what is my environment then?
You're suffering from an acute form of melancholia, but you can and will be cured. All you need is rest and detoxification. I will take care of every detail.
Right. So I actually, because I've been rambling on for 30 minutes now, so the other option that I had was, of course, the archaeologist dude. Now I feel like the Garrow wasn't the guilty one, because they said that he went sort of crazy. I think he would have remembered what he did and things like that, and he, didn't give the absolution that we sort of deserve in a game like this or in a story like this. So again, I was wrong. So the other option was that The archaeologist did it, and he was sort of framing the ice knife thing, but that really wouldn't make any sense. Why did he break the negative down there? Because he thought that no one would get there, but he blocked the entrance or sabotaged the entrance. That was what I thought, that he would know how to sabotage an entrance in an excavation and make it break, later on. But then it's one of those things where it's not gonna, stop anyone. We're gonna get in there and we're gonna, investigate it further. He's sort of drawing attention to the whole area, and then finding the stuff down there in the hole. I mean, he got there. Everybody, he was the second person to go down there, I would imagine. So it wouldn't be too much of a stretch to have, a third guy get in there. And everything sort of pushed me towards him, and I was really sure it was him until I started thinking about what I should have thought about in the previous cases, which was the evidence, sort of like what does that point to. So everything was sort of pointing towards him, but then it was like, well, he's framing himself now, and that's not good, and there was so much else that I was thinking about yesterday, that he would have sort of he would have gotten extremely lucky with the silver in the fire, because he didn't see and know what was going on. The champagne, I think the champagne is sort of the clincher, and when I thought about it again, I think the murderer brought it there when he was away, when everybody else was away, but then he didn't know that the guy was away. So we should assume, because we couldn't ask him whether he was, like, can you send a note to your sister and ask for a reply now? Because nobody knew what he was going to do, the bellboy, I mean. So bring in the champagne. He's just lucky that he can bring it there, and he knows that he's waiting there, because there's a 20-minute stretch. So he's waiting for the guy to leave, the bellboy to leave. Why? Because he doesn't know that he's gonna leave. And bring in the champagne, because it's after the champagne was brought, it's gonna take forever to, he needs the champagne for the ice knife. For the silver knife, There's no way to, hide a silver knife. He was arrested and he was naked. We went through his clothes and shit, or we could have. There was no place to hide the knife. So this all just put me off of the whole archaeologist thing. And then the only one who's left is actually the owner of the place. But there's so much sort of pushing me away from that as well. And it's sort of... I think it's fine when the sort of evidence is pushing away from things, but then when the motives and everything is sort of not in place, then it's not like he needs a good motive to do something like this. And I don't think I found a good motive for him to do it, because if he found out that the knife was elsewhere, it's a big deal, but it's not going to stop anybody from finding the knife, because he just basically sabotaged himself, and maybe he could sell the idea that the knife is there or something until it isn't. It's found that it isn't, and so on. So things just don't make sense, and maybe I'm being reasonable and the murderer is not, but things just weren't stupid. I mean, things just... I'm the dumb one here, I imagine, but things just sort of seem messed up. But I don't believe that I was right, but we're going to accept it anyway, because that's how things work. Holy shit, I'm so wrong. So, only 4% thought this thing in the same way as me. That means I'm totally wrong. I'm like the worst player of this game ever. However, I need to make a choice, and I can't sit around forever. So I should probably in the next case I will spend more time with the conclusion than just, a few minutes here and there. I should actually go through the whole thing and then look at the options, because even in the options I was like, yeah, man, this is sort of seeming ridiculous, but that's how things work. We're going to go on to the next one.
The game is afoot, not a word. Into your clothes and come. I'll wait for you in the sitting room. I've just received a note from Inspector Lestrade. A letter from the suburbs. He is in need of my presence. Whenever he has asked for my assistance, it has always turned out to be entirely justified. I fancy that every one of his cases has found its way into your collection.
Yes, they all seem worthy of...
However, I regret your fatal habit of looking at everything from the point of view of a story instead of a scientific exercise.
Oh, Holmes, you...
I beg your pardon, I digress. It would be much better to examine this letter than to try to convince you.